Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 12 based on novel. So let's start. After Little Flame obtained the other half of the Essence Blood inheritance, he chose to immediately go into cultivation seclusion and refine it. The management of Deep Lightning Mountain was left to Lin Dong. This gave the latter a headache. After all, he did not have Tang Xinlian's abilities and could not manage a huge faction well. Fortunately, he was pleased to find that despite the fact that Deep Lightning Mountain was still suffering some ripple effects due to the change in ownership, there were no major problems. Lin Dong began his own training after he saw that Deep Lightning Mountain was stable. Although he had advanced into the initial profound death stage, this cultivation level was still a little lacking, considering the strength of his opponents. Though he might be able to use many tricks to breach the gap between them when it came to a fight, regardless of how many techniques one had, one's fundamental strength was still an extremely critical factor. However, when it came to raising his strength, Lin Dong could only train in a slow but steady manner when it came to Yuan power cultivation. Hence, after thinking about it carefully, Lin Dong decided to focus his attention on his mental energy. In terms of mental energy, Lin Dong did indeed possess frightening talent that even shocked little Martin. However, Lin Dong focused most of his time on Yuan power training. This resulted in his mental energy cultivation frequently lagging behind. Although it would occasionally soar because of some unexpected factors, it undoubtedly lacked the stability of his Yuan power, which had progressed in an extremely natural fashion. Lin Dong's current mental energy was at the peak of the initial Divine Symbol Master. If he could progress by another step, he would reach the advanced Divine Symbol Master level. At that time, his mental energy would possess strength similar to a profound death stage expert. The combination of the two would allow him to unleash quite a powerful strength. However, trying to advance his mental energy was no easy task. Just as Lin Dong was racking his brains over this matter, Yang, who was always nowhere to be found, unexpectedly decided to provide him with some assistance out of the kindness of his heart. Lin Dong sat on a stone platform in a huge hall of Deep Lightning Mountain, which was used specifically for training. Below the stone platform, Chen Tong respectfully handed him 10 Qianquan bags. Sir Lin Dong, each Qianquan bag contains 10 million Xian Yuan pills. This subordinate can go to the treasury to retrieve more if this is insufficient. Chen Tong felt a throbbing pain when he spoke those words. 100 million Xian Yuan pills. Even though their Deep Lightning Mountain was quite wealthy, it still caused him, the person managing the wealth of Deep Lightning Mountain, to feel a heartache from spending so much at once. Ha, I am good for now. I have troubled brother Chen Tong. Lin Dong smilingly said. He waved his hand before the Qianquan bags landed in his hand. Little Flame was in control of Deep Lightning Mountain and had inherited the tremendous resources of this huge faction. Otherwise, it would be quite tiring for Lin Dong if he had to earn 100 million Xian Yuan pills by himself. Chen Tong quietly sighed in relief upon hearing Lin Dong's words. He bid Lin Dong goodbye and left. In his heart, he was thinking that perhaps it was time for the army of Deep Lightning Mountain to head out again. Otherwise, their current reserves in the treasury would not be able to sustain Lin Dong's expenditure. Lin Dong watched Chen Tong left. Only then did he smilingly ask. I have already obtained the Xian Yuan pills that you need. What should I do next? A white light flew out from within Lin Dong's body. After which, it turned into a light figure. Yang sucked the 10 Qianquan bags into his hands before nodding. He said, do you remember how you had used the ancestral stone to train your mental energy a long time ago? Lin Dong was startled upon hearing this. He sighed and nodded. At that time, he was still training back in the Great Yang Empire. It was truly a long time ago. The ancestral stone indeed possessed the ability to temper your mental energy. However, you did not know how to use it in the past. Moreover, your feeble mental energy back then could not endure such a tempering. Therefore, I never mentioned it to you. Now, however, you should be able to barely endure it. Yang said. Although he was in a slumber back then, he was still able to detect some ways in which Lin Dong had used the ancestral stone. At that time, Lin Dong had used the ancestral stone in a manner that was extremely painful for him to look at. My owner also practices both yuan power and mental energy. In fact, he reached the peak level in both of these cultivations. Practicing both type of strengths, huh? Lin Dong was a little surprised. It was likely that he did not expect that the strongest being ever had actually chosen to train both types of strength as well. Though this was not a rare path, many who touched these two types of strength had one which they focused on, and the other as an assistant. In fact, even Lin Dong would tilt more towards his yuan power, and he ended up neglecting his mental energy cultivation as a result. These two strengths are both extremely powerful. However, it is inevitable that one of them will be stronger, if both strengths coexist in the same body. In the past, the reason for my existence was to maintain the equilibrium of these two powerful strengths within my owner's body. Although my owner subsequently managed to reach a level which surpassed this world, and no longer needed me to maintain the equilibrium, I was extremely important before he managed to do so. Now that the Yimo has once again appeared in this world, no one knows when the next world war will break out. Hence, you should try to improve your strength. In order to truly resist the Yimo tribe's attack, we need a second symbol ancestor. Yang looked at Lin Dong, while his eyes became extremely grave. It was also the first time Lin Dong saw such a grave expression in Yang's eyes. He quickly laughed bitterly and said, "You are really overestimating me. Although I have always been extremely confident in myself, if we are to talk about this, Ying, the Ice Master, should have a better chance than me, am I right? I am aware that your little girlfriend is the Ice Master's reincarnation." Yang looked at Lin Dong. "I also know that even though my master said that the Ice Master is the most probable person to reach his level, however, the ancestral symbols chose you." "What do you mean?" Lin Dong frowned. "The ancestral symbols are the most powerful divine objects in this world, and they possess intelligence. From a certain point of view, they are unable to coexist in a single body. The devouring ancestral symbol can do so," Lin Dong reminded. "Indeed, the devouring ancestral symbol has the largest acceptance capacity amongst the ancestral symbols. However, you should also know that even the devouring master failed to successfully refine a second ancestral symbol. The devouring ancestral symbol also had other owners after the devouring master. However, they never possessed a second ancestral symbol like you do. Given their abilities, it is not because they could not find a second ancestral symbol." "Do you mean," Lin Dong narrowed his eyes and said, "the reason why I am able to refine the Thunderbolt ancestral symbol is not related to the devouring ancestral symbol?" This caused Lin Dong to feel a little lost. He had never felt this kind of so-called affinity with the ancestral symbols. In fact, when refining the Thunderbolt ancestral symbol back then, he was nearly killed by those lightning strikes. It is related. However, it is not the most important factor. The most important factor is that there is an affinity between you and the ancestral symbols. Therefore, the ancestral symbols chose you." Yang stared at Lin Dong. "This affinity only appeared to my owner ever since the ancient times." Lin Dong was stunned. He immediately felt his skin turn numb. "You'd better not tell me that I am the reincarnation of the symbol ancestor." This was something that he was completely unable to accept. He was Lin Dong and had a consciousness that completely belonged to him. He did not wish for something to be mixed into it. It would have been best if that was the case. Yang smiled bitterly. "My owner incinerated his reincarnation to seal the crack between the planes. He has already completely disappeared from this world and will not have the opportunity to reincarnate." Lin Dong sighed in relief. He felt that his back had become wet from cold sweat. However, he did not feel anything like having an affinity. All he knew was that he had lingered between life and death for countless number of times in order to get to where he was today. Nonetheless, this means that you have the potential to become the second symbol ancestor. The ancestral symbols do not make random choices. Yang's eyes were a little strange as he looked at Lin Dong and said, "Isn't that a little too far-fetched for me now?" Lin Dong was helpless. This discussion was a little too far-fetched for him right now. Yang was non-committal. He shrugged his shoulders and said, "Forget about it. It might indeed be a little too early for me to be telling you this now. We should first resolve the problem of your mental energy cultivation. He waved his hand as he spoke. Promptly, 10 Xianquan bags flew out. Soon after, 10 huge pill rivers formed by Xian Yuan pills came whistling forward. They looked just like huge dragons crouching in this large hall. Bang bang. When 100 million Xian Yuan pills gathered together, the energy contained had naturally reached quite a frightening extent. Due to the gathering of energy, there was actually a splashing water sound being emitted. Waves of majestic Yuan power ripples spread. Hovering in mid-air, Yang's hand seals changed at lightning speed. Following which, with a deep roar, the 10 pill rivers suddenly slammed into each other. Then, a frightening energy shockwave spread. As the wave spread, faintly, there was a massive 1,000-feet object slowly being formed. It was an extremely gigantic mysterious light plate. A heavy atmosphere lingered within it. Light permeated the light plate, appearing as though it had formed its own world. Yang stood in the sky. He watched the huge light plate and smilingly looked towards Lindong. However, Lindong could detect a mischievous intent in his eyes. Subsequently, Yang bowed his body and gestured for Lindong to enter. This is something that my owner gave to his disciples back then to train their mental energy. Welcome. You are the 9th person to enter. What is it? Lindong watched this huge light plate. He could detect some dangerous ripple from it as he asked uneasily. Yang laughed. His casual voice caused the pores all over Lindong's body to stand. Endless divine prison. This was an extremely large and vast hall. One side turned blurry when one tried to look at the edge of its borders. The entire hall seemed to be in a state before the birth of chaos. Bang! At this moment, 2 figures were dashing in this hall. In the next moment, they suddenly crossed blows with each other. A punch and a kick clashed as a powerful force erupted like a volcano. However, upon closer inspection, one would realize that the appearance of the 2 figures were actually that of Lindong. Moreover, the strangest thing was that both of them were exactly the same. However, one appeared full of life, while the other appeared indifferent. In fact, the latter's jet black eyes did not even hold the slightest emotion. However, it was clear that the both of them looked similar. However, that indifferent-looking Lindong was clearly even stronger. Both parties exchanged sharp blows. That punch quickly broke through Lindong's defenses before that ferocious fist mercilessly smashed heavily on Lindong's chest. A fall spluttered out from it and the fist penetrated through the latter's heart like a blade. Boom! Wild and violent strength exploded from Lindong's body as his entire body was torn apart. Waves of terrifying pain spread within his body. Although Lindong's body was being ripped apart in this cruel fashion, he did not die. Instead, he sensed his consciousness floating upwards. The Lindong in front, who had torn him apart, did not move. The doppelgangers within the endless divine prison is divided into the heaven, earth and man stages. You are currently unable to defeat even the weakest man stage doppelganger. It seems like you have indeed neglected your mental energy cultivation for far too long. A light figure appeared in the mid-air. Yang looked at Lindong's gathering consciousness and commented in a faint voice. Lindong parted his lips and laughed bitterly. This mental doppelganger has full knowledge of my attacks. Moreover, it is even stronger than me. It isn't easy to defeat it. Additionally, that fellow's attacks are far too vicious. This endless divine prison is a place where my owner trained his mental energy back then. Although you will not end up truly dying if you are torn apart here, that pain will be magnified many times over before it is transmitted back to your mind. As long as your mental energy body is able to endure it, you will be able to continuously revive in this place. Yang said. He looked towards Lindong's consciousness, which had gathered together. If you are unable to even endure this little amount of pain, there is no need to continue this mental energy training. This is because the future sessions will be even more painful. You should be aware that no strength in this world comes for free. Lindong's consciousness inhaled a breath of air and said, "There is no need for you to tell me this. Please continue." A ripple spread over Lindong's consciousness. After which, light gathered and a mental energy body was once again formed. Slowly clenching both of his palms, soon after, he lifted his head to look at the mirror image which had rushed over again. This time around, he did not say anything unnecessary. His foot stomped on the ground and his body rushed forward. Bang bang. The two figures clashed violently again. However, Lindong merely managed to endure over a dozen exchanges this time around, before the mirror image blasted his head apart with a punch. Whoosh whoosh. Lindong's consciousness continued to float around. Meanwhile, a vague intense panting noise was emitted. Contained within that voice was pain, which could not be hidden. Again. Lindong clenched his teeth. His body took shape once again as he charged forward. Bang! Bang! Low and deep noises continuously sounded in the hall. Those two figures were like tireless wild beasts, as they collided with each other again and again. Sharp fist wind erupted and a deafening rushing wind sound appeared. Lindong's mental energy body was continuously blasted apart by that indifferent doppelganger. However, he did not feel defeated because of this seemingly meaningless attack. His consciousness churned and many mental energy bodies were continuously formed. After which, he charged forward like a ferocious man with murderous red eyes. Perhaps it was because of this intense pain which caused Lindong's consciousness to become a lot dimmer. Lindong did not detect the light over his body sinking deeper within each time his mental energy body was reformed. The time that the doppelganger took to defeat him was also quietly growing. This place did not contain any Yuan power. There was only the mountain-like tough determination. 435. Yang calmly watched the mental energy body, which was formed again and again. It could feel that Lindong's consciousness was already becoming quite blurry. However, the mental energy body that he formed had unknowingly become as sturdy as steel. The reason why Lindong was able to endure was entirely because of his tenacity. His tenacious nature also caused Yang's usually picky eyes to reveal some admiration. A person's physical body can be weak, but if his mind was weak as well, this person was destined to never become a truly strong person. Clearly, Lindong did not belong in this category. Yang might have been in a slumber in the past, but he still saw how this tender youth back then walked out from the small Great Yang Empire and reached his current level step by step. Moreover, this was not his final destination. Yang was able to sense that this young man, who was not considered exceptionally powerful now, would ultimately become so powerful that even it would choose to submit to him in the future. Bang! Another low and deep noise spread from below. Yang glanced over before both of his eyes narrowed. He could see that the hand of the mirror image below had once again penetrated Lindong's heart. However, Lindong's fist had also blasted apart the mirror image's head at that same instant. A miserable act of perishing together. The mirror image fluctuated. After which, it slowly disappeared. Lindong's body also fell. It shattered upon smashing onto the ground, and turned into a consciousness that drifted upwards. The scene returned to the training hall within Deep Lightning Mountain. Lindong suddenly opened his tightly shut eyes. A frighteningly ashen expression was revealed as cold sweat continuously seeped out from his forehead. Both his hands were tightly clenched and the veins on his hands were exposed. Although his body did not suffer even the slightest damage, a frighteningly and intense pain surged over like floodwater, following the return of his mental energy back into his body. Lindong trembled as he forcefully endured the intense pain that had invaded his body. This continued on for half an hour before he finally relaxed in a limp fashion. The 8 masters back then also went through the same training. Yang appeared and said, "In that case, where am I ranked based on my result?" Lindong wiped off the cold sweat and casually asked. 9th. The corner of Yang's mouth twitched. "That is the last place," Lindong smilingly said. Back then, the Devouring Master failed 100 times before defeating the first human-ranked doppelganger and is ranked 2nd. Yang paused before continuing. The top rank belongs to the Ice Master. She failed 11 times. Lindong's body stiffened. He involuntarily nodded. Amazing. Only after having fought with the mirror image would one understand just how powerful it was. Yet, that Ice Master only failed for merely 11 times before she was able to defeat it. Her talents could not be described by the phrase ultimate talent. It's no wonder she was regarded as the person who will most likely reach the level of the symbol ancestor. Yet, Lin Dong failed over 800 times before he managed to defeat the doppelganger. The difference between them caused Lin Dong to feel ashamed. However, this is hardly representative. Your foundation is much weaker than them. Furthermore, they were taught personally by my owner. On the other hand, you are mostly self-taught over the years. If you receive the same instruction and training condition, it is likely that your results will be much better. Yang said. Perhaps. Lin Dong parted his lips. However, there was not the least amount of defeat in his eyes. He lifted his head to look at the huge light plate in the sky. A fiery heat rose into those dark black eyes of his. However, I am stubborn down to my bones since I was born. Hence, I do not wish to lose anyone. I will continue training tomorrow. Yang was clearly startled upon hearing Lin Dong's words. After all, this training was extremely tortuous and one would typically require a few days to recuperate after each session. However, it did not stop Lin Dong, after witnessing the latter's excited eyes. It merely shook his head slightly. A pleased expression flashed deep within its eyes. During the subsequent month, Lin Dong did not even take a step out of this training hall. He would enter the endless divine prison every day and receive that death-like tempering. He was aware that he had to make up for his negligence towards mental energy. In order to do so, he had to put in a great effort. Thankfully, following the intense and painful training, he was also able to gradually sense that the mental energy in his Niwen Palace was surging and solidifying at quite a pleasing speed. According to this speed, it was only a matter of time before he broke through to the advanced divine symbol master. During this 1 month, Little Flame was still undertaking a retreat. Moreover, Lin Dong hardly had the time to manage Deep Lightning Mountain as he was training his mental energy. Fortunately, Chen Tong and Hua Miao were much more reliable than the both of them. Hence, no overly major problems occurred under their management. During this past month, although they thought about calling Lin Dong, they chose to abandon their plans after sensing the frightening energy ripple being emitted from within the large hall. They could detect that Lin Dong was currently at a critical stage in his training. Therefore, they could only leave helplessly. 1 month swiftly passed amidst this training. Gradually, experts with Chen Tong's strength could vaguely feel that there was a frightening mental energy fluctuation slowly being emitted from within the training hall. However, while the energy that was being emitted from the training hall was becoming increasingly dense, rushing wind sound suddenly appeared in the sky outside of Deep Lightning Mountain. Subsequently, 2 figures arrived while walking on air. They were wearing green robes and those robes had a blood dragon symbol over it. A pressure was quietly radiated from them. Someone from Blood Dragon Hall has arrived. Demon Commander of Deep Lightning Mountain, why haven't you came out to receive us? 2 figures appeared outside of Deep Lightning Mountain. Their eyes turned downwards before an icy cold cry reverberated across this mountain range like a thunderous roar. An ice-cold cry wrapped in majestic yuan power reverberated endlessly across the sky above Deep Lightning Mountain like raging thunder. The entire Deep Lightning Mountain had clearly been disturbed by it. Immediately, many rushing wind sounds appeared, as numerous figures rose into the air. Their eyes cautiously stared at the 2 figures standing in the sky. Who are you? A powerful individual from Deep Lightning Mountain looked at the 2 green-robed figures with a grave expression as he demanded. Only the Demon Commander of Deep Lightning Mountain has changed. Don't tell me that you are now unable to even identify your true backer. The 2 green-robed figures laughed faintly. However, a chilling aura seeped out from their voices, causing the temperature of Deep Lightning Mountain to fall substantially. It is the 2 great commanders of Blood Dragon Hall. We are sorry that we have failed to receive you. Deep Lightning Mountain had become a little chaotic because of this commotion. Subsequently, a couple of figures flew out. Chen Tong's eyes hardened when he saw the 2 figures in the sky, but quickly greeted them with a chuckle. It is Metal Lion General Chen Tong. Oh. You managed to safely remain while the demon commander changed. It seems that your contributions were not small. The two green-robed figures looked at Chen Tong and laughed faintly. Chen Tong's expression slightly altered upon hearing those words. He was naturally able to hear the mockery within them. However, he did not dare to burst out in anger this time. After all, these two were not ordinary characters. Hence, all he could do was reply, "May I ask why the two great commanders have come to our deep lightning mountain?" The demon commander is currently in cultivation seclusion. Cultivation seclusion? The expression of the green-robed man with a sharp and narrow chin sunk upon hearing this. He coldly cried out, "Call him out. We have come here to pass on a message from Lord Blood Dragon. I have heard that your new demon commander is the so-called General Yang from before, right?" The eyes of Chen Tong and Huan Miao behind him changed upon hearing the words, Lord Blood Dragon. It was likely that they were quite familiar with this great person whose name was known in this Beast War region for over 100 years. They were all great generals of Deep Lightning Mountain in the past. Naturally, they were aware of the relationship between Xu Shong and the Blood Dragon Hall. Chen Tong and Huan Miao exchanged glances. After which, they looked towards a training hall deep within the mountains behind them where frightening mental energy ripples were currently present. The person within did not show the slightest signs of leaving his seclusion. Great commanders, this is a very crucial time for the demon commander. Would it be possible to let me know if there are any important matter instead? I will help pass on the message once the demon commander leaves his seclusion. Chen Tong hesitated before recommending. His words had only just sounded when he suddenly detected a terrifying pressure sweep out from the two figures in front of them. An icy cold voice quickly followed, "It seems that your new demon commander is really ignorant, asking my Blood Dragon Hall to wait for him. Ha ha, even Xu Shong does not have that capability. Since all of you have no intentions of calling him, it seems that the both of us will have to do so ourselves." The two green-robed men smiled coldly. Their bodies moved and they rushed towards the interior of Deep Lightning Mountain. "Commanders, please stop." Chen Tong's expression changed drastically upon seeing this. A loud cry sounded as his body rushed forward. Humph! However, a cold snort was transmitted over just as he was about to move. Soon after, a huge light seal came whistling over and ruthlessly smashed at them. Bang! A terrifying ripple swept apart as Chen Tong and the rest were directly forced back. They appeared rather miserable as they staggered backwards. These two commanders of Blood Dragon Hall were experts who had long since made a name for themselves in the Beast War region. Both of them possessed the strength of the perfect profound death stage. Even if Xu Shong was present, it would not be easy for him to fight the two of them alone. Hence, it was naturally difficult for them to stop these two individuals. The two commanders from Blood Dragon Hall barbarically charged into Deep Lightning Mountain. Their sharp eyes swept around them before pausing on the large hall that was giving off astonishing mental energy fluctuations. Lord Blood Dragon wishes to pass on a message. Why hasn't the new demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain come out to receive his words? The two commanders' sharp eyes stared at the huge hall as their cold voices thundered, wrapping around the large hall. However, the training hall remained quiet in response to their shouting. Not the least amount of noise was emitted. Fury rose within the eyes of the two commanders when they saw this. They did not say anything as each threw a punch. Majestic Yuan power unfurled and ruthlessly struck the huge hall like a mountain. Given the strength of these two individuals, they could easily shatter a mountain if they attacked together, let alone a mere hall. However, just as the boundless Yuan power was about to touch the huge hall, an extremely powerful mental energy shockwave swiftly swept out and clashed against the ferocious Yuan power attack. Bang! A loud sound reverberated as many huge cracks spread around the large hall. The land shook and the mountain swayed. It was as though an earthquake had occurred. Oh! Surprise was revealed in the two commanders' eyes when they saw their attacks dispelled. A cold laughter quickly sounded. You do indeed have some ability. No wonder you were able to snatch the demon commander position from Xu Shong. However, let the both of us see whether you will show yourself today. As these words faded, majestic yuan power surged like floodwaters around the both of them. That momentum was quite shocking. Rumble. However, dark clouds suddenly rumbled and gathered in the sky as they were preparing to attack again. Silver snakes danced within the dark clouds as thunder boomed across the sky while accompanied by shocking ferocity. This is the wind-lightning trial. The two commanders looked the dark clouds gathering in the sky as they felt the frighteningly wild and violent strength within. Their eyes hardened as they spoke in astonishment. This wind-lightning trial is so powerful, it seems that his mental energy should be about to reach the advanced divine symbol master level. The new demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain actually possessed such powerful mental energy. The two great commanders faced each other and frowned. Demonic beasts mainly focused on training their physical bodies and yuan power. Other than certain special tribes, most demonic beasts were rather lacking in their mental energy cultivation. At this moment, Chen Tong and the others had also hurried over. Surprise flashed across their eyes as they looked at the activity in the sky. They were clearly aware of Lin Dong's strength. However, it was unexpected that the latter would have such accomplishments in mental energy cultivation. Rumble. Berserk thunderbolts gathered crazily within the thunder clouds while black clouds churned. In the next moment, a loud thunder was heard. A resplendent thunderbolt ferociously descended like a lightning dragon and struck the large hall below. Bang! While the thunderbolt whistled downwards, everyone suddenly saw a figure appear above the large hall. He lifted his head and looked at the violent thunderbolt, however, he did not show any signs of avoiding it. Instead, both of his hands slowly parted. Lightning finally came pouring down and the large hall had turned into ashes in an instant. A seemingly bottomless pit appeared within everyone's sights. However, everyone ignored this. Their eyes contained some surprise as they looked towards the skinny figure in the air. Lightning whizzed past, but he was completely unhurt. It was as though the violent thunderbolt from earlier was completely ineffective against him. An uproar spread and the eyes of the two great commanders from Blood Dragon Hall hardened. The figure completely ignored the uproar from the surroundings. He lifted his head to look at the churning black clouds. Lightning seemed to flash in his pitch-black eyes as he slowly lifted his head and frowned. In the end, he softly said, "Disappear." The wildly churning thunder cloud suddenly stilled. Subsequently, everyone was stunned to see the thunder clouds, that contained extremely berserk energies, start to recede little by little. Next, it slowly scattered in front of everyone's eyes. It scattered? Chen Tong's group were dazed as they watched this scene. Their expressions appeared quite strange. They were naturally well aware of the wind-lightning trial of a symbol master. Its power was terrifying. Yet, that overwhelming wind-lightning trial from earlier had simply disappeared because of a word from Lin Dong? This was the first time that they had witnessed someone with such ability. The entire sky had become unusually quiet after the thunder clouds in the sky disappeared. Lin Dong gently patted his hands as a smile surfaced on his young face. After which, he looked towards the two green-robed figure, cupped his hands together and smilingly said, "Oh, it's friends from the Blood Dragon Hall. May I know why have you come to Deep Lightning Mountain? Are you the new demon commander of Deep Lightning Mountain?" The two commanders looked at Lin Dong and asked with a frown. "Ha ha, the new demon commander is my brother. However, he is currently in cultivation seclusion. You can tell me if there is anything you wish to say." Lin Dong laughed. The two great commanders exchanged glances upon seeing this. Perhaps it was because they had witnessed some of Lin Dong's ability earlier, but their attitude was no longer as unreasonable as before. They merely spoke in a faint voice. "Lord Blood Dragon is already aware of what has happened in Deep Lightning Mountain. However, he does not wish to comment about it." Lin Dong faintly smiled and nodded. "Nevertheless, Lord Blood Dragon has asked us to deliver a message. Is Deep Lightning Mountain still willing to regard Blood Dragon Hall as its leader?" The two commanders looked at Lin Dong with stern eyes. Lin Dong lifted his brow slightly. He immediately laughed. "Deep Lightning Mountain has only changed its commander. Everything else will remain the same." He did not have any intentions of fighting with Blood Dragon Hall for the position of leader. As long as it did not hurt their interests, Lin Dong could not be bothered about such things. The two great commanders nodded upon hearing this. There was an expression in their eyes that suggested that Lin Dong was at least aware of the situation. Since this is the case, hand over this year's tribute. The conditions are the same. It will be a total of 3 million Xian Yuan pills. Additionally, the divine item treasury will open again in slightly over a month. According to the rules, all the divine objects that Deep Lightning Mountain has obtained within 10 years must be handed to Blood Dragon Hall. The two commanders spoke indifferently. However, their voices gradually weakened. This was because they saw that Lin Dong's originally smiling face appeared to have become a little cold. With regards to the matter of Blood Dragon Hall being the leader, I have no objections. Lin Dong slowly lifted his head. His pitch-black eyes stared at the two great commanders of Blood Divine Hall. However, I do not have any Xian Yuan pills. My Deep Lightning Mountain doesn't even have enough divine objects. Hence, we will not be giving any away. Chen Tong's group gazed at the indifferent-looking Lin Dong and were immediately stunned. This person was indeed as overbearing as before. This video will end here.